忘れ物を見つけた場合は、その時にお話しください。レースの終わりに 気は良さそうですね。チームは予定を考え直すかもしれませんね。
Lucas Lodato felt the face full of dirty air by Matt Taylor, in the Madworks number 6. You can see the race lead though, just looking very strong. Now who was up there into the wall? There was one car without a shadow of a doubt that slapped the right sides in on entry. Would have probably been Tristan Fortson, who's dropped down a couple of spots. But as Laura Gerhard in front of Robin Glennox, watch the breakaway starting to build. 2 laps complete and already your front 5 or so trying to separate themselves away as Pavelski and Brendan Lichtenberg at the front will try and go back and forth. Off into the opening corner once more. Rob Malechka does look like he's a bit of a sitting duck in that power slide number 1 machine. Team i5G have clearly showed up with a rocket ship of a setup, but not necessarily sure what that's going to mean in terms of long-run speed. Will Matt Taylor be able to close onto the back of Malechka Pass and then try and fight his way on forward? That will kind of be the thing to keep an eye on. Laura Gerhard behind, fights with Robin Glennox, Michigan's own. End of lap 4 sees the power slide machine actually get out-dragged on the run to the line. You bleed a lot of speed on the entry into turn 3 and 4. And some of these drivers will be using some brakes. There's that little grouping behind with Laura Gerhard. Lucas Lodato had a pretty decent start in qualifying, but now has dropped back slightly. And runs himself in that 9th position, with Robin Glennox now almost out of the draft of Rashad Craig in front, who's in danger himself of being in some no man's land. As around the outside, there comes the challenge from Tristan Fortson. So he, without a shadow of a doubt, hit his right side tires into the wall, but it hasn't knocked the steering out of alignment, out of track, and he's now up, I believe, into 9th position. And yeah, you can see him just at the back of the shot there, a slid in front of the black, white, and red machine. On board with the worm man, Jacob Osudo, as he slides through turns 1 and 2. Jumping back off him. You can see he's looking to try and get underneath of his teammate, who not just closes the door, but feeds him a face full of dirty air. Rather rude if you ask me, but when you run 1, 2, and 3, control the speed at the front, and already ticked away 6, now the 7 officially, of our 125 laps, I guess you can afford to cause some commotion in the i5G Discord call. The i5G Discord call as well. Probably not seeing too many drivers. I know Brandon Trainor's not here. And it's great to see Matt Pavelski back, but where's Christopher Demerit, one may ask? Where's Hamilton Akabueezi? A whole handful of drivers that we'll still wait to see as we roll out at the end of the month for qualifying. Still waiting to hear as well if we are going to see Alexis Newsom back in competition, who we haven't seen on RaceSpot at all since the end of 2022, when our ability to cover IndyCars came to a close. A real contender, and maybe the deserving winner of the 2022 iRacing Indy 500, robbed just by A very, very cruel caution. Up the inside, Rob Malechka struggling, and there goes Matt Taylor. His Madworks machine holds back no longer, slices up on forward, but look at the overspeed from Malechka, a bit tighter down through turns 1 and 2. Backs out of it, eventually realizes that his car's not good enough. Matt Taylor arcs that corner in that Madworks machine. You can see him just try and get a bit more speed off the exit, leans on the right rear that little bit more. That will also eat into the tire life of the Firestone rubber that they have underneath them, and with 10 laps complete or so, we're probably not too far away from thinking about the drivers down onto pit lane for the first time of asking. Now, fuel windows here still going to be relatively lengthy, don't get me wrong, but what did I say slightly earlier? Caution's likely inevitable. As you burn that right rear off, expect turn 4 to become increasingly difficult with the load on the car. Already starting to see separation building through the field as well. We've got almost 11 seconds back now to Olivia Hayward in the 21st and final spot in the field. But all of our Dallara IR18s, and I'm delighted to be able to say this, are still out there pointed in the right direction, on track, and moving and shaking. Shaking and baking in the case of Nicholas Sudik, who's risen his way up into 12th position. Started down the back, didn't get the qualifying time that he maybe would have wanted. And that very distinctive yellow and pink Dallara IR18. Outside of that, they're not really seeing too many drivers slicing forward as efficiently. Still waiting to now see if Rashad Craig can follow Matt Taylor through in his Indy Alliance Racing machine. Rob Malechka still very much a bit of a cork in the bottle. No Adam Blocker, no Brian Carey, no Andrew Kinsella, no Henry Bennett, no Wilson Nadeau. These are all names that maybe Powerslide Motorsports can expect to see when the greatest spectacle in sim racing rolls around, which was confirmed earlier today by Drew Adamson, Senior Broadcast Director at iRacing. But the team at iRacing will have official coverage of this year's iRacing Indy 500. As ever, the 5 p.m. UTC time slot will get the center stage as the feature event. Christian Steele will be the man with the target on his back, the reigning, defending iRacing Indy 500 champ. But it's the race that everyone wants to win, and it's the race that the Speedway will decide who comes out on top. Now, this is seemingly a rather boring race, but I will be completely honest, it's about what I've done all day anyway. I'm here in Atlanta today, or to be a bit more specific, about 2 hours north in the Dawsonville area, staying in a wonderful Airbnb here in Big Canoe, where just about a couple of hours ago we finished up with day 1 of Prodigy Week Part 2, where 20 sim racers got their chance to fly their way on out here, fight for a professional racing contract. Today was all about physical testing, mental assessments, the media training, and then going out there for some autocross and some skid pad stuff. But tomorrow is when we throw them out into the Radical SR1s. It's got 190 odd horsepower, albeit capped at about 60% throttle for these drivers to get a little bit more familiar with what is a downforce machine, an introduction into the slicks and wings sort of category of racing. And you know, a Radical's probably not a bad baseline to get ready to go racing in an IndyCar if you're not necessarily, you know, out there racing on the road to Indy. And the reason I bring all of this up, by the way, is not just to say that I'm in podcast mode already with this race being as boring as it is, but we've got some great people from the IndyCar paddock that are going to be there tomorrow, and I can't wait to be back out there. Max Pappas, I ran into him at the end of the day today in the paddock. He was there. He'll be there tomorrow as well, coaching and mentoring our young sim racers as they get to grips with the real machines. I'll be in the booth with Brian Till and there's a couple other connections behind the scenes. Pit Fit, for example, who are based out of Indianapolis, do a lot of physical training for the athletes in IndyCar and IMSA. They're here testing, assessing the driver's physical attributes and strengths. And there's a whole host of other little things like that. And a late edition, very sort of off topic to this sort of a race, but Spencer Pompelli is going to be joining us on very late notice. For those of you that are sports car racing fans, you'll probably recognize that name from everything that he's kind of been doing across the sports car world. But Very cool to see him alongside Kenton Cook and a handful of others giving their time to be here and helping these sim racers out. I was going to say young sim racers, then I realized we do have some drivers as young as 15, but we've also got someone who's 45 years young and trying to prove that age is just a number. Finally some action at the front though, because we are 20 laps in, and I'm just going to say this right now, I'm operating under the assumption all these drivers are just saving fuel in map 5. Like, there's no way that these drivers aren't just concerned about the fuel mileage right now. And look how much Jacob Oster loses as he effectively runs into the dirty air of Pavelski off of that second corner. You see him down to the inside on entry. Same thing will happen here through turns 3 and 4. You'd expect when you're in the slipstream, the double slipstream in this regard, because, you know, Jacob Oster being towed around by Pavelski and Lichtenberg, you get a bit of a speed advantage, but no, not going to be the case. Evan Adams has dropped behind Olivier Simoneau and Carl Gretsch in front of them. Nick Sudik has just got past Tali Dubosha. There's these little bits of action through the field, and now we've got the action up front as well, because Jacob Oster has decided it's finally time to uncork his machine, and the Spaceman, the Worm Man, no matter what you want to call him, he's going to try and get the afterburners turned up and work forward with Matt Taylor increasingly growing in those rear view mirrors. 4 cars split by about 8 tenths of a second. Now the only disappointing thing, I say disappointing, it's more disappointing on my own part about being here at the Atlanta Motorsports Park with these wonderful Radical SR1s is, well, as many in the iRacing IndyCar community will know, I'm a tall person. I'm 6'5", 196 odd centimeters. I've tried getting into a Porsche Cup car before, into Riley Dickinson's Porsche Cup car back at the Porsche Sports Car Together Fest in 2022 at Indianapolis, best track in the world. And I've told this story before on a couple of broadcasts, but let's just say it did not go well for me because I ended up with my shoulders and head basically smacking onto the tarmac while my legs went up in the race car and hit the roof. Not necessarily how you meant to get in, but I'm too tall to get into a Radical SR1 is the point of that story, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. Look how much, Pavelski out through turn 3. Almost just got absolutely sent on the inside by the Madworks machine. Matt Taylor carves his way back into line, but only momentarily. Into draft, out of draft, into draft, out of draft. He's not sure if he wants to make the move or not there. Rob Malechka sits behind, and I can tell he was Rob Malechka's teammate. He's probably not got a very good setup for this race, so he's probably just hanging on and very happy to be up here at the front. Matt Taylor tries to make the move through turns 3 and 4, slides up in front of Pavelski. Contact was made, but no front end damage to the Team i5G machine. Rob Malechka goes on through, and my CSI Miami goggles are trying to zoom in on the screen to see if there is any damage on the i5G number 7. Meanwhile, for your leader, it's all kicking off, and i5G action, maybe not on their YouTube channel for this race, because I'm not sure if they want to see what happened to Pavelski behind, but it's Jacob Oster up the inside and through to the race lead as they go, switching back and forth now, potentially teammates at the front. There's the red and white car of Rob Malechka, who is in the proper Powerslide Motorsports colors, it would seem. So that is what you want to see. Ooh, that time it almost seemed like Malechka got tight, maybe not on his tools to where he needs to be. Throw a bit more weight jacker into that car, get it rotating a bit more. Remember, these drivers have the front and rear anti-roll bar to stiffen and soften each end of the race car, in addition to that weight jacker, which is here only on the ovals, to give them a little bit more, let's be honest, load onto the right rear tire. That's effectively what it's going to end up doing. But now that train, 6 strong at the front, with 30 laps in the books. Passing all of that Honda signage. It's quite interesting to think about how the investment that they made on this track. It took them quite a while for Honda to grab its first victory here, and we've had plenty of history-making moments at this track as well. Let's you know, not forget that. You think back to those races that we had with initially beginning with kart. It would have been in 1998, the inaugural Indy Japan 300, won by Adrian Fernandez, who is also very familiar with running into my rear end at Indianapolis, unfortunately. Poor Adrian, end of a 500-mile race that we were doing there a couple of years ago. I ran out of fuel, he didn't know it, and I spluttered, and he didn't have time to react. But you think about, you know, what happened after that. Honda entered the Indy Racing League, IRL, then in 2003. It took a while for them then to, it didn't take a while for them to win their first oval. The next year, Dan Weldon, the Lionheart, came here and won for Honda. Then 4 years after that, additional notoriety in many ways to this track when Danica Patrick became the first woman to win an IndyCar race, beating Helio Castro Neves for what ended up being her first and then only, unfortunately, IndyCar victory. And, you know, I'm sure she could tell you many stories of some of the great racing that you could have at this track with the proper type of aero packages and config. It's, I think, just fair to say in many ways that the Dallara IR18 does not necessarily suit these cars as well as we would have hoped. I go back to the Lionheart Speedway Series. We had coverage of that on RaceSpot in 2021 and 2022. Did have some decent racing in the DW12 here at Motegi, which is you know, the original, the chassis before the one that we have now on iRacing. The nomenclature of the Dallara and IndyCar chassis is a bit confusing, but we'll gloss over that and swiftly move on. I guess there's also some interesting, you know, questions about how long this racetrack actually is, because you know, when NASCAR came here, they measured the track at, what was it, 1.549 miles. I've just brought Wikipedia open. So for those of you in the proper units, that is 2.493 kilometers. IRL actually measured it at 1.520 miles, or 2.446 kilometers. So a little bit different, very, very minor difference, but very, very important. Evan Adams has had a small issue. He is now down on pit lane, but everyone else circulating, and that is 20 Dallara IR18s. Probably not far away from traffic being a consideration, but as we close on the 40-lap mark of this 125-lap affair, probably not far away from pit stops as well. On board with the Hyperstar. I'm listening in here. We cut away from the engine audio, but it's very hard to judge if that was a demerit engine at full chat, as Team i5G like to call the power plants in their units, in their cars. Or plant units, whatever that word would be. And again, just cycling off the corner for your race leader. So your gap's opening up through the field. It's 10 seconds between the top 14 or so, with confirmation that Evan Adams is officially now a DNF as well, not just in pit lane, but is 4 laps down and showing no signs of bringing himself back out onto track in his All-American iRacers machine. So not going to see that eagle on the front. I've just checked the iRacing IndyCar Discord. Nick Sudik at the end of qualifying posted a message. Well, this sucks. Evan Adams said right after that, I say right after that, right after he got out of the car, yes. Sorry, Evan. If you want to come and have a chat with us, though, I'm here in the broadcast booth by myself, and you can always come and keep me company for a couple of minutes before you go and drown in your misery for the rest of the day and get back to, I'm assuming, grinding qualifying at the Speedway. Next week will not be the 4-lap average when we go racing from the racing capital of the world. It won't even be a relatively long race either. I just want to preface, you know, our trip to Indy with that. But it will instead be just a 1-lap qualifying speed that's used. Drivers get 2 laps to set their fastest time, though that might be something to keep an eye on. Malechka in front of Taylor, so moves into 3rd. His power slide machine maybe now starting to make some moves. Pavelski in 6th, has not lost too much ground with suspected damage. But if it is a front wing change that we suspect that he is going to need, it's going to end up costing him around 5 seconds, unfortunately, in that pit box. Oh, Michael O'Brien in our YouTube chat needs more 5-wide action. And the answer to that, Michael, is I'm about to turn the stream off, because for those who do not know this story, It was the Lionheart Retro Series. Would have been, was it 2021? Or was it 2022? Or was it 2023? Because we had coverage of that last year as well, didn't we? I'm going to assume it was in the middle, probably 2022. We went 5 wide in our Lotus 79s into turn 3 in the opening 10 laps of the race. And that's the story. They all crashed, as you can assume. I think we ended with about 6 cars left on the lead lap in that race, which... Oh. Into pit lane, Tristan Fortson brings my look down memory lane to an end. And the misery as well. And that 17, rather slow into pit lane if we're judging it correctly. My assumption is he just about spluttered into the box. But he's not the only driver to make a pit stop. Will Stearns, Richard Holt, also seemingly on the pit stop grind right now. There's Lucas Lodato as well. So about 44, 45 laps in. Drivers at the front continuing to save that fuel. And for Tristan Fortson, it was an 8.9 second pit stop, so pretty tidy stop all things considered. 13.9 for Richard Holt. That's the example of what it takes to change the front wing as the caution is out, and I think it might be Matt Pavelski in the Team i5G orange and black number, and his machine has gone hard into the outside wall. This is going to be a solo car incident, probably still struggling with a little bit of balance issues after the smack into the wall earlier. This is a look from very far out, so not going to really get the best sense. Oh, and the car snaps on him. Lazy slide, keeps it out of the wall. And we will see the first caution of the day. It's going to come at a pretty optimal time for those who stayed out on track, but for those that pitted, Lucas Lodato's 1 lap down, so is Tristan Fortson, but Will Stearns, Richard Holt, 2 laps down apiece now. As T-Bell, Townsend Bell would have said, the drivers that pitted early on a highway to the danger zone. They will probably get 1 of their laps back, so Fortson and Lodato will cycle to the tail end of the field on the lead lap. Will Stearns, Richard Holt will be 1 lap down. So here they come. Pace car is going to continue rolling out there on track, and Jacob Oster in the green and gold Team i5G entry powered by Demera engines will make his way down to pit lane. Olivia Hayward uses this chance to jump into the YouTube chat. Not quite sure how she's able to drive and type in the YouTube chat, but these drivers are more talented than I am. I have to remind myself of that all the time. Nearly got turned in the opening stages of the race, sent to the back of the field as a result of a loss of momentum, and has done a good job to fight back through the field, because at one point I was worried that Olivia might end up being the first car that our leaders would end up putting a lap on in terms of actual wheel-to-wheel track action. Into the box though, here come the drivers. We've got 20 Dallara IR18s, their pit crews put to work, 4 Firestone tires, a full tank of fuel. It's about 70 litres, 18 gallons to top this car off, and Oster off and away. Lichtenberg close with Rob Malechka, who was content to sit behind, though, and comes out in third, with then Rashad Craig, Robin Glennox, Matt Taylor, Nick Sudik, Laura Gerhard, Tyler Dubosch, and then Sam Karasala, your top 10 as they run. Olivia Simoneau's up to 11th, Carl Gretsch not far behind. And this is where, as mentioned, Fortson, Lodato, Holt, Stearns, they're now trapped between Jacob Oster and the pace car. When we cross the start-finish line to see what will we want to go, we'll end up shuffling those drivers back to the front. Again, thank you for joining us here on RaceSpotTV for coverage of Monday night IndyCar iRacing competition. This is what is dubbed the strength of field race, which is typically where most of the drivers try and coordinate to be here week in and week out and race with the same drivers all the time. There's a couple of other strength of field scattered across of the week, but especially with how this series requires so much dedication, and you think to some of the races that we have as well, intensity, the tracks like Belle Isle, which sometimes seems like it's going to shake our drivers into a whole new world. That's sometimes some of the stuff that they're very much thinking about. Remember, we'll see the lights drop off the pace car this time by. 4 drivers will get the wave around. And then we'll be ready to go racing once more with what should end up being right around bang on the money. I think 75, maybe 74. Probably 75 laps to go. How does that work out in terms of fuel? Well, you didn't see anyone come in before lap 43 or so, so it's definitely a one-stopper from here. If they think they can stretch it as far, though, as 75 laps... Oh, no, never mind. Olivia Hayward says we'll have 75 to go. Definite one-stop. Okay. Sometimes this commentator doesn't know what he's talking about, and he should trust his own opinion. Oh, I say that, but again, it's been a very long day, and I don't trust anything that's coming out of my mouth right now. Olivia says fuel maxes out at maybe around 60 laps or so. But at that point, your tire is going to be screaming in agony, to put it mildly, as well. This Firestone tire, very much a tire compound that is meant to go at these high speeds, but it's not necessarily enjoying the experience, is it? Pace lights are off, field is getting stretched around with the wave arounds happening, 75 to go confirmed at the line when we'll see the green flag. Phil Kraus did, by the way, he's so scared, I'm saying this on the broadcast, so make sure we clip it please. Phil Kraus was so scared of racing here that he asked to come and join the broadcast. That scared. He's already the championship leader, what could have gone wrong? Again, disappointed. Disappointed by Phil. Not acceptable. Our champions are expected to be fighting champions. We expect them to be there every week. No, we don't. It's great when we see Phil out on track. It's great when we see Augustin Canapino, for example, out on track as well. I was chatting with our producer Ramiro just before we started. Where is Augustin? You know, they're all in Indianapolis anyway this week. Him and Adam Blocker, they don't have anything that much more important this week. It's not like they're qualifying for the greatest race of the year. Off and away pace car goes, and hopefully for the last time today, we see the green flag fly once more, and it's Team i5G 1 and 2. Matt Pavelski now back in 15th spot, and with a lot of work to do, turn up the engines on the restart. Green flag lap complete. Matt Taylor alongside of... Is that a lapped machine? It might well be. So, could be Will Stearns, who's now just being trapped in this leading pack, actually, somehow. Which is a frustration, I'm sure, for him. Taylor, though, will get up the inside of Glenix. That's all for 5th and 6th positions. Christian Hilgard just jumps into the chat to say, what do you mean, Phil? This racing looks thrilling, to which I say, Christian, we want to see you do a few more ovals. Don't get so snarky with us, please. Next time at Indy, right? Next week you'll be there? Hopefully you've got the satellite racing set up. If it exists, up the inside from Matt Taylor, but really pushed out wide by around almost a groove and a half there. And here comes Nick Sudik in the All-American iRacers machine. Qualified down the back, but the blue car with the pink rims. It's an interesting fashion statement. Sees just how much under... Oh, my word. Robin Glenix is... slides up almost into the outside wall. Almost slides off the circuit in many ways. Taylor with a block pass attempt. Doesn't try chopping the nose off. Sudik responds, goes around the outside, tries to use the draw from Glenix to try and run his way into turn number 1. Look at the overspeed as well, blasts his way on forward, and now Taylor washes out wide. 2 doses of dirty air. You've got to adjust your tools, the ARBs, the weight jacker, to compensate. It'll be 70 to go at the line. We've had 5 green flag laps complete since the restart got back underway. Oster and Lichtenberg trying to just not fight with one another, build away, break away from Malechka and Craig. We'll see how it plays out, though. They do have that saying, you know, cautions breed cautions. And I'm just a little bit worried that something could happen. Oh, we do have a webcam today. I was wondering who was in our Zoom. Jacob Oster, the Worm Man, the Spaceman, whatever you want to call him, nickname him. And the reason why he's got those two nicknames, for those new to the community, our Discord server, by the way, iRacing IndyCar community Discord server, got above 1,000 users for the first time ever. It's more than almost doubled now since the license came back to iRacing, so do come and join us. It's a party. Not always of the good time when we're arguing, but that's what motorsports is all about. But the reason why he's got those two nicknames is he is actually at... he's just graduated from the, I believe, University of Arkansas, and he was actually on some projects there with the, I guess, faculty and student research team that sent up an experiment, science experiment with worms to the International Space Station. So Jacob Oster is both the Worm Man, the Rocket Man, the Space Man, the Honda Pilot Man. Very fitting for this particular track. You can call him whatever you want, and he'll respond. I do need to respond to this absolute slander. Maybe it's libel. I'll have to double check with Adam Crane as to what it is. But it's being thrown around and bandied around by Christian Hilgard, that's saying that he's not doing the Nürburgring 24-hour race, which is, you know, sacrilege. Not allowed to say that on RaceSpotTV. Except if you're this commentator who says that the iRacing Nürburgring 24 hours could be a little bit better if we had one less class. But I never said that out loud. You can see the lap time difference between Oster and Lichtenberg. It's marginal between the two. I mean, talking hundredths here and there. Lap 58 was almost half a tenth actually in favor of your race leader. It's a bit more than I would have necessarily expected between two teammates on what I'd assume to be not similar, but identical setups. So yeah. Behind the leaders, still close enough between Glennick, Sudik, and Taylor, but no moves being thrown right now. Again, we're in that phase of the tires where there's enough grip to let them run around, but too much dirty air to let them get really close for the most part. Phil says, let's get rid of the TCR class. To which I say, don't tell Paul Smith that. But I would not be opposed, and the reason why I would not be opposed to that is if you're going to remove a class, it should not be the fastest class and it should not be the slowest class, because what makes the Nürburgring 24-hour race so fascinating is the traffic interaction, right? The fact that you've got a GT3 car that could do what, a 750, 8-minute, sub 8 minute in some cases for sure, a lap time around the Nordschleife, even with the Grand Prix loop added, versus whether it's Mazda MX-5 or Toyota GR86, you know, in either case, we're talking, sheesh, a lap time that's almost 11 minutes or so. Like, and the speed differential, it's scary, and definitely something to remind yourself of as Sudik and Glennick's wheel to wheel. The blue and pink machine on the outside, that's the All-American iRacers car. Someone else also remembers, don't tell George Simmons that the TCR class sucks. Don't do that, especially given that George is a big fan of our IndyCar community. Let's not send him against us for slander against his favorite front-wheel drive machines. And by the way, thanks for bringing that up. George Simmons, who is now a Formula One race winner with Lando Norris. Not just Lando Norris winning, of course, the Miami Grand Prix, but George Simmons was there on the pit wall at Miami, in mission control effectively, and it's great to see. He brings so much to the Apex Racing team strategy table when he's there. Mark Tranter has taken over very effectively, with George now seemingly taking a bit more of a dive into the world of Formula One and the strategy there. But again, Mark Tranter doing a good job in the I guess almost year and a half now that George has been a little bit more focused elsewhere. He's been doing some management engineering for the McLaren Shadow Formula One team. I don't think he was necessarily part of the F1 Sim Racing World Championship that just wrapped up this past week, but you know, he was part of Lucas Blakely's run to the title all those years ago, I was going to say, then I realized it was not all those years ago. How time flies. 125 lap race. We're on to the 67th lap. So slowly but surely ticking them away. And now past the halfway mark. It's still I5G 1-2. Oster from Lichtenberg. And then Rob Malechka, Chef Burt, trying to cook up a Michelin star special from the front. Looks like Matt Taylor, Robin Glennick still trying to fight in and amongst each other, but the look of focus on Jacob Oster's face. He can be quite a jovial character, can Jacob, but jovial Jacob nowhere to be found. Instead, it's what's an adjective to describe someone who's really serious that begins with a J? Jaded? Maybe he doesn't look jaded. Jaded Jacob sounds pretty good, though. I'm all open to suggestions, by the way, for nicknames here. So throw them into the chat for some context so you are aware of what is acceptable on RaceSpotTV. Team Redline, we have some nicknames for some of their drivers now, courtesy of the digital Nürburgring Endurance Series. So Chris Lullum is Silly Lully, rolls right off the tongue. And Gianni Vecchio is Grandma Gianni, which makes a lot more sense when you know the language that they speak, and what some of those names mean as well. So Grandma Gianni very much lives up to the name occasionally, but more often than not typically fights towards the front of whatever we tend to see him in. There's a look at Olivier Simoneau in front of Sam Carasalo. That bright yellow on the front of Sam Carasalo's machine. Probably very easy to identify from the wing mirrors of Simoneau's car, just sitting in that driver's eye perspective. Every little reference that you can get to just pick apart and pick out when your moves are going to be made by those behind can be quite important. Slowly, though, we're getting towards what will be a crucial window. Crucial window. If the run to the end could be about 60 laps, then from what we're talking, let's say you do a little less fuel saving, you push a little bit harder. I mean, we're already past the point that a caution would see them dive on in to the pit lane. So it's an interesting thought. You don't want to push too hard, risk being involved in the caution, but you can't also afford to come in early, do the undercut. We've talked about how you get put 2 laps down, right? Yes, you might see a bit of a speed improvement, but I mean, the fall off for your race leader is 26.9 to a 27.4. It's only half a second. So it's not really that much, and going 2 laps down, all it takes is the caution to come out for you to be trapped a lap down, and you're not, unfortunately, going to be able to catch back up on that. So that's a difficult one. Behind, Matt Pavelski passes Laura Gerhardt. So I think the damage has been fixed for Pavelski potentially, because he was only stationary for 9.2 seconds. So definitely didn't do a front wing change there. Is there side pod damage or something that we're not seeing, though? That's now maybe where my brain is starting to go. On board with another one of the drivers, Nick Sudik, already up 14 spots, and now into the top 5. He is the number 3 I-rated car in this split, which I think the strength of field for this race is probably going on around 3.5 KI rating. But with the number of top-level drivers that elected not to be here, Jason Brophy, calling him out in particular, by the way, because there's no eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series tomorrow. As no excuse, Jason. I know you're going to tell me you were over at Indianapolis, the virtual speedway, getting ready to go for qualifying. But no excuse. It's unacceptable. Phil Krause says 3,800 SOF, so I wasn't far off the money. That strength of field calculation is a bit of a a mind blur to try and calculate, if we're being honest. Doing it from the raw iRatings, it's much easier when iRacing just tells you inside of the sim, which I'm hoping that Phil Krause is using, because otherwise he is a mathematical genius, not just a great driver, championship leader here, but a human calculator apparently. Matt Taylor's into pit lane. Now, is that because of damage? Is that because this is a strategy call? Now, we're looking from quite a far shot from the car, so I can't quite see if there's side pod damage or anything, but he goes up on the jacks. He's going to get 4 Firestone tires, and now we'll try and get word, but that is a very, very bold call and has instantly gone the lap down. As we mentioned, will end up going down an additional lap because he's being held in pit lane. He's been there for 15 seconds and counting, and word from one of our YouTube chatters is that Matt Taylor sped on entry, and that's going to end up seeing him halted for close to almost a full minute. That is going to be race done, maybe 4 or 5 laps down when he rolled back out onto track. So Brendan Lichtenberg and then Rob Malechka riding behind your race leader. We cycle back to Tyler Dubosch with Laura Gerhard, the target in sight now. The gyrocam shows the 10 degrees or so of banking at either end of the course. Very unique shape, of course, the egg-shaped Motegi, with the flat and wider turns 1 and 2. And then turns 3 and 4 bring a lot more acute of an angle and a much more treacherous sort of corner to try and actually fight wheel to wheel, if we're being honest. Okay, we are splitting hairs here, Phil, because if you are going to say that making dinner is productive, Jason Brophy is being way more productive than you by running Indy testing, but that's still no excuse. In fact, you know what I'm just realizing? Jason Brophy had no excuse last week as well, when we were racing on the road course. Because last week's eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race, 4-person broadcast team, as that's a very, very slow Richard Holt, so I'm going to assume he's had a bit of a spin and an issue out of turn 4, has avoided hitting the wall, has checked up the field behind. But, you know, the month of May, it is just the best month of the year. And that's not just for IndyCar fans, where, let's be real, we start off at the Speedway, we stay at the Speedway, we stay at the Speedway, and basically we spend 3 weeks just thinking about what's happening there. Road course racing over the weekend, qualifying coming up this weekend, and then the big race a week from Sunday. Looking forward to getting out there with the likes of Jacob Oster and Brendan Lichtenberg to go and watch the iRacing, the Indy 500 for a 3rd year with them, and then the week after that we'll all head our respective ways home. They'll be focused on the qualifying grind, and I've got to try and figure out how I can steal as many secrets from them so I can sound intelligent when I have to commentate on races at Indianapolis. That is my secret. That is what I'm going for. Nick Sudik down on pit lane as well. Now that does seem to be a strategy call, to see him come in and try and get an undercut working. Carl Gretsch follows. I wonder what Adam Blocker thinks of all of this. Has just jumped into our YouTube chat, wanted to race, was at the track being the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, until quite late. And Adam, I've heard, by the way, it's a IMS that's going to be filled with rain potentially for the foreseeable future in terms of the week. So I hope that you do your little dry dance and it stays dry, and that you're able to get out there on track and enjoy the first runnings of this year's on-track activities for the Indy 500. And hopefully we'll see you back, of course, whenever we can. We have an interesting run of races coming up. Adam, of course, unfortunately, you know, and I don't mean to rub this in for him, but he's not going to be, unfortunately, able to be a part of the iRacing Indy 500 as it makes its return this year. Of course, the NTT IndyCar Series makes its way on over to the streets of Detroit. And for the record, again, I'm just going to make sure I put my thoughts and feelings on tape, on YouTube, so someone can come back to this and reference it in the future. Belle Isle, better than what we have now. Just saying. It's a good thing we have that on iRacing, and we'll be racing there in a couple of weeks' time. Look at Brendan Lichtenberg, though, who is starting to drop back from your race leader. Rashad Craig operates as our camera car out of turn 2. It's like tighter line for him, as Rob Malechka tries to now get his slingshot into turn 3. Nick Sudik with the fastest lap of the race. Clear indication of already an almost 0.4 of a second advantage per lap in the All-American iRacers number 3. Do any of these drivers feel the need to try and cover off the move? The answer seems to be no for the time being. No one inside of the top 15 or so has followed just yet. Christian Hilgard agrees with me on Belle Isle and goes even further to say that it's better than all other street tracks, which... Now that is a tough one to answer, because there are a lot of different street tracks around the world, and how do you decide what is the best one? I think I agree with you, it's the best one IndyCar goes to, or went to. I think now of the current crop of... now of the current crop of street courses, what would it be? Lucas Lodato into pit lane. Becomes the next person to peel his way on in. Adam Blocker, St. Pete is very good. I will agree with that. I think Toronto's not bad as well. I will maybe risk some angry comments by saying that I think Long Beach is a very interesting track in an event. I don't think it's the best street course that IndyCar visits. But anyway, here comes Jacob Oster into pit lane and from the race lead. So he clearly only went around 46 laps, not as much fuel saving this time, as Malechka in front now of Lichtenberg has maybe turned his fuel saving down to minimum and taking advantage of a little bit of the extra fuel that he now has. Looking at the schedule for the NTT IndyCar Series right now, Portland isn't technically a street circuit, is it? So that doesn't count. So I guess now we're really not down to that many street circuits anymore, are we? We've got St. Pete at the start of the year, Long Beach then, which is technically the second points-paying race now, and then Belle Isle, yeah. And then, of course, yeah, I'm not forgetting Toronto. We mentioned that as well. But of the current ones, that is definitely something just to keep an eye on. Which one are you a fan of? Because now with this new license coming back, right, the assumption has got to be that there are going to be efforts and, you know, opportunities to scan these tracks that we don't have. How cool would it be to have St. Pete, to have the new street circuit, as much as we still want Belle Isle to be around, and Toronto, at which point we would just actually need Portland International Raceway to showcase the entire NTT IndyCar schedule. That's Richard Holt locking it up. Very close moment there for Will Stearns. Change of racing suit, please, in pit lane for that driver, and it was very, very slow to build the speed up. I'm very glad that did not bring out the caution, though. And now, more people down to pit lane. Olivia Simoneau followed in by Casey Pachuski. Richard Holt now 3 laps down, is still circulating, and so we do have 20 of these Dallara IR18 still out there and starting to spread themselves across of this facility at Twin Ring Motegi. Jacob Oster is out there in 9th position, is though the first car 1 lap down. He's in the danger zone. When does your race leader come in? Because realistically, right, for Rob Malechka, he wants to go as long as possible on the fuel at this point. He's not expecting to get the overcut to come out in front of Jacob Oster. He's just trying to really leave Oster in that danger zone for as long as possible. Lichtenberg follows his teammate into pit lane. So now both of the Team i5G machines, the green and gold and the blue car, filing their way down onto the lane. We'll see how long a stop it's going to end up being there before they can rev the engine, listen to the howling roar, and send themselves off and away. So Brendan Lichtenberg, who's got, by the way, let's not forget, the best pit stall, all the way there at the front. All he has to do is drop and go straight. There's no turning for him. Just get the traction down as well as he could. Now he had an 8.6 second stop. Jacob Oster was 7.9 seconds. So Oster's going to cycle on through and be have a handily margin over his teammate. I only speak English. I am monolingual, and I still manage to butcher it here on RaceSpotTV quite frequently. So just remember, we have some commentators whose English is not their first language, and they are sometimes more fluent than me. Craig follows Malechka in. It just leaves Talo Dubois technically yet to exit pit lane, but he has now officially rolled his way off. So now as Matt Pavelski picks up the fastest lap of the race, Malechka hits his marks. He's in that second pit stall. 2 boxes back to find the green and gold Indy Alliance racing car. But here comes the green and gold Team i5G machine. And so Jacob Oster up to speed and now grabs the lead back. Malechka's going to filter in, probably behind even Nick Sudik, who has taken opportunity through his undercut to go from 5th up to 2nd in that All-American iRacers machine. But he is going to pay the piper at the end when his 14-lap-old tires already are going to be that much worse than everyone else. Christian Hilgard says, I'd be okay with them not scanning Detroit so we can keep Belle Isle, but bring on St. Pete and Toronto. Again, we want Detroit for the main reason, Christian, here, just so that we can do a full NTT IndyCar season. Because I've got no problem running the VCO IndyCar Challenge with Belle Isle, Center Stage. I haven't mentioned that so far today. I was good. I restrained myself. But that's going to be great. VCO IndyCar Challenge announced at the end of last week. 6 races, $7,000 on the line. I can tell you already the interest that we've had in terms of possible participants, as I try to smash 2 words together and come up with a nonsense word in response. It's been remarkable, not just from the community, and we're very much looking forward to seeing how some of our drivers get along competing against potentially the very best in the world of sim racing, the Apex Racing teams, the Oracle Red Bull Sim Racing, Team Redline, of course, Red Bull Sim Racing, Oracle Red Bull Sim Racing partnered up with Team Redline. And who else? Who knows? My lips are sealed for the time being, but more news to come. Malechka on the back of Sudik, and just look how much more grip, how much more confidence he's got. 14-lap fresher tires, blows up on the inside, and flies his way on forward. Did a 26.887 last time by, excuse me. That was a very, very quick lap, albeit not the fastest lap of the race. Still sitting, Matt Pavelski, 26.773. Not for any longer. Robert Malechka, 26.609. Oh, he couldn't stop himself. He did that while passing someone as well, let's not forget. I know the slipstream would have helped him, but sometimes when you have to go the longer distance around, it's suboptimal. This is definitely a bit of a fairer fight than the one that's going to take place on July the 20th, though. So, at least for the time being, we've got teammates being split up at the front. Jacob Oster now, he's going to be worried. There's no ifs or buts about it with less than 20 laps to go. I mentioned that Robert Malechka's probably not got the best of setups in the car, but apparently you don't need the best of setups to survive in a fuel mileage race of sorts at Mobility Resort Motegi. So, you know, ultimately, I guess if you don't have to put the work into the setup, why put the work into the setup? It's why I've been commentating on some rallycross on iRacing over the last 18 months, and we last saw the iRacing Rallycross World Championship back in 2021, so that's been away now for 3 full years. And last year I remember talking to Josh Fox from Williams Esports, maybe even Jacob Rafoss from now Nitro Circus Sim Racing, then it was Jim Beaver Esports. So are you guys using the same setups as you did during the World Championships? And for the most part, they just kind of would nod their head and go, yeah, hasn't been changed since 2018. But now, because the competition in some ways actually got a little bit closer, much like with Pavelski and Unglenix that we're seeing now, Pavelski makes that move and slots himself up into 6th, but momentarily, because there comes Unglenix firing and back up the inside, but longer distance might actually give a bit more momentum in the exit of the corner here for Matt Pavelski. Oh, and it's going to work out to end up being equal at the line. It was neck and neck when they broke the timing beam. But Robin Glennick's inside line, shorter distance, should hold on. Pavelski will slot into line and try and now slingshot back into turn 3 potentially. Adam Blocker says he made some setup changes last night to the car. So at least he was putting in the hard work, which was great to see. And Robin Glennick and Matt Pavelski, oh man, Pavelski's going to get a little frustrated at some point if he can't jink back underneath and crisscross and make that move happen, because it doesn't seem as though he's got the car to make it stick on the long way around. He'll prove me wrong though. At the end of lap 111, he finally gets the move done and slices his way forward to 6th. Look at that smile on Pavelski's face, clearly very happy with himself. Maybe almost as happy as the day last year when Matt Pavelski, walking around the Indianapolis memorabilia show, stumbled upon Al Unser's key to the city of Long Beach. It's funny that we're talking about street circuits here, because that Indy memorabilia show, I'm telling you right now, and probably I should not be telling you so that I can stock up on some more IndyCar parts for my program for 2025 and to get an Indy community car out there, driven by myself, of course, and with Adam Blocker as our head engineer. Demerit Engines powering us on the engine side of things. But you've got to go there. Even if you don't end up buying anything, it's $10 to get into the door. You will just walk around and you'll be transported back in time in some ways. They've got vendors who are selling, you know, the official programs for like every single edition of the Indy 500 ever. As you can imagine, some of them a little bit more pricey than others, but you will find some really unique things. And that includes something as wild and random as Nigel Mansell's side pod. I say side pod, I mean the entire side part of his car from, I believe it was 1996 at New Hampshire, or one of the shorter ovals where that entire side of the car just came off, and it's there at the memorabilia show. If no one bought it last year, they brought it back this year. It's where I bought Kevin last year, my Kevin Magnussen race suit, when he did his NTT IndyCar Series debut and to this date only race at the wonderful track of Road America. So yeah, watching as Brendan Lichtenberg and now Rashad Craig both make their way past Nick Sudik, whose bold call, unfortunately, didn't pay off. You got to make those ambles though at the end of the day, and anything is a net positive for Nick Sudik. Started down the very back, been up here in the top 5, been up there in the top 3 on occasion as well. Let's make sure we highlight that in particular. But closing stage is very much being just worked through right now. Estimated 3 and a bit minutes left of racing. Jacob Oster comfortable out front. It's 1.5 seconds his margin. Rob Malechka trying, but last time by, only 0.2 of a second gained. Now 0.2 of a second means it takes you 5 laps rather, to close up a second. Rob Malechka might be there. Is he going to have time to try and make something happen? Or is it going to be a late desperation move between two relatively new names to the community, but who have become very much locked in horns as potential contenders this month of May when we make our way over to the Speedway for qualifying? Jacob Oster has just been passed. Rob Malechka grabs the lead, and my word, with 6 laps to go, how did that change hands so quickly? Lapper involved, Malechka back down to second. Okay, 6 left to play, and Jacob Oster has got a task on his hands to make that Team i5G machine as wide as it can be. Look how wide the racetrack is. You could fit probably around 10 IndyCars side by side. It's not going to matter though eventually, because only one has got to find its way past, and Rob Malechka on the outside of turn number 4 doesn't have the momentum. 5 to go at the line. To the inside and with a slide job. Crisscrosses and makes the car stick. He's got just enough downforce, just enough speed. The margin back to Brendan Lichtenberg, a full 2.5 seconds as it sits right now. Oh, Malechka almost washed up into Oster there. Nerves standing up on end. For the drivers behind the wheel, ice running through their veins. We've seen Jacob through the course of the race. He's been as cool, calm, collected as you'd like to see so far. He's now, though, trapped on the outside. The long way around, the worn tires. That right rear trying to dig into the tarmac and give him the bite. Oster leads at the stripe, but Malechka alongside, and with the shorter distance through the opening couple of corners, but with traffic in front of them to play a part. Mere pixels splits them right now, leaving nothing on the line, recognizing who they're racing against, and knowing they don't have to leave as much room as they might in other situations. This time I think Oster's going to be clear on the run to the line. It's a little bit closer than I thought it would end up being, but he still ended up being your race leader. Traffic goes high, balks Jacob, and there goes Malechka sailing through. White flag in hand this time by, and here come the Snakes. We're not at Indianapolis, but we're in the month of May. Let's see what they can do on the run to the final lap. It's been a quiet race so far, and it all built up, it bubbled up. Fuel safe strategy in some ways, or maybe it was just recognizing the undercut was never going to work. Look at the margin that Malechka builds out through the opening couple of corners. This win will not be in doubt as he heads out through the couple of final corners to go, unless he bins it into the wall. No such struggle though, and who needs to put hours into a setup when you can show up and show out? It's Rob Malechka, winner here at Mobility Resort Motegi in the first of our oval races in the month of May. Oster second, Lichtenberg third, an i5G double podium, but power slide on top, heading to the Speedway in a week's time. And to quote Christian Hilgard, to quote Michael O'Brien, Robert Malechka is inevitable. Oval racing is simple. You turn left for 90 minutes, and in the end, RM3, Robert Malechka, comes out on top. I don't think any truer words have been spoken today on this broadcast, that is for sure, but with all the drivers now officially across the line, Rob Malechka is going to do some burnouts down on the start-finish stripe. We are ready to talk you through your race results. And so it is Robert Malechka, the winner, 125 laps later, who comes out on top of the Team i5G duo of Oster and Lichtenberg. Rashad Craig down in fourth position with Nicholas Sudik, with Matt Pavelski, Robin Glenix, Tyler Dubois, Lucas Lodato, Olivier Simoneau down through the top 10, and then Sam Karasala, Carl Gretsch, Laura Gerhard, Treston Fortson left on the leading lap, but just about. Olivier Hayward in 15th, then scored in front of Matt Taylor, who's going to be slightly frustrated that the speeding penalty cost him a chance to contend up the front, and then Brett Pancari, the final driver, 1 lap down. 2 laps down for Casey Patiski, and then Will Stearns, Richard Holt, the top 20 before you get down to the final driver. Retirement early, and the only retirement for Evan Adams. We blew through the results. Rob Malechka with the fastest lap, and also the fastest winner this season, to come and join us in the broadcast booth. We were going to run away, but Rob was here so quickly that he joins us now. Rob, talk to us about that race, because I was wondering, A, did you have a decent setup in the Powerslide Motorsports machine? But more importantly, was there any fuel games going on at any time over the course of that race?
Well, to answer question 1, yeah, that car was an absolute rocket ship. And your question 2, yeah, I was basically map 4 or 5 at Olson until that last pit stop. So that was really fun.
I'm going to... I misheard you initially, and it was much funnier with my mishearing of what you talked about with the car. I think you know what I'm saying there. Let's talk about this track though, because it's unique, Rob. It's not the traditional oval, is it? You know, we've got that turn 1 and 2 complex being flat out, foot to the floor in many ways, and then turns 3 and 4 so much tighter, so much more tricky. How do you balance the car, not necessarily from a setup management point of view, but from the driver management point of view? How do you manage to navigate around this track for 125 laps?
Yeah, Motegi is one of those tracks where you really have to manage the right front and the right rear. I mean, that first stint, you know, I was a little loose, and then I started trying to get plow. I started to really just plow tight there. And yeah, just Motegi has always kind of been whoever can manage the right sides best wins the race, it seems. And I think we went in a direction with a setup that definitely helped us in that aspect. But yeah, then you know, at the end of the race, like I knew we had really good clean air pace and just kept saving fuel to have a tire advantage, because usually it is very tough to pass here, but you know, we found something in the Indy Oval Fix Series weather-wise that with a cool track temp, it seems racing is quite good. Oh my gosh, Arjun, what are you doing? And yeah, just I think that cool weather that raced really well in fixed has carried over to open, and it's just it was really fun racing there. Like we were on top of each other, so yeah. I'm
having a party here, if you can't tell, Rob. This is a great time at this Airbnb in Big Canoe, or whatever it's called. Thanks for joining us, Rob. Great start to the month of May for Powerslide Motorsport. So, high expectation when we roll around to the Speedway in a week's time.
Yep, we'll do. Thank you, Arjuna. Take care.
Always great to chat with Rob himself. Let's go catch up, though, with second place, Jacob Oster, the Worm Man, the Space Man, whatever you want to call him. Jacob, seemed like an interesting race from your perspective. When you pitted earlier than Rob, though, was the riding kind of on the wall for you?
No, I just threw away the win at the end. I just tossed it away.
Oh no, what happened? Talk us through it.
So there's this bump in turn 1 and 2 as you're coming around, basically turn 2 on the exit. And our car was really free. It was pretty loaded up. So like I knew like it was gonna maybe start doing that, but it hadn't done that at all that entire run. And Rob was 1.2 back with like 5 to go, and I just boop and almost died. And Rob caught me, and then we battled side by side, and then I just died again.
I guess you were at a pretty big tire disadvantage at the end in many ways as well. It was like 8 laps or something, so I'm guessing it was hard to keep up the fight there. But Jacob, let's talk a little bit, I guess, about Team i5G, how you're feeling. It's month of May. Next week, we're over to the Speedway, both in virtual and reality. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there for the 500 itself. How excited are you? We're back, month of May, IndyCar and iRacing. Come on, you've got to be smiling from ear to ear right now.
Well, not right now. Maybe like half an hour ago, or a couple hours from now. But I am excited for it. It's good to have it back. Good to have the competition back. And I know that situations like this that happen tonight are going to end up popping up. Especially, I'm probably going to be one of the people helping race Rob for the win in the 500 in a couple weeks. So I got to just look at it, get better, and do more Q runs so I start up front.
Oh, you just reminded yourself that the Q Run grind is well and truly underway. Congratulations, Jacob, on a very well-earned second place, and hopefully we'll see you next week back over at the Speedway.
Thank you, Arjuna.
We'll make our way from Jacob Oster, the second of the Team i5G machines that finished on the podium. It's the Hyperstar Brendan Lichtenberg that jumps in. Brendan, pole position for you, so I'm sure you were very happy with that. Talk us through the rest of the race, though, and having to fight your way back through some traffic in the latter stages.
Yeah, to be honest, I never even expected pole position. On my stream, I was just like, wow, Rob just ran a 3, whatever. Like, I'm not hitting a 3, and then I go 200s faster, so go figure. But I knew it's going to be pretty... my teammates were nice to me. I think Jacob had pace to begin with, so we were just kind of controlling the pace. And then once the pit stops happened, that's when kind of the more crazier stuff happened. And yeah, I fought through traffic, and it was better by the end of the race. Early on, it was a lot more sketchy, but just glad to have hung on to it. My wrists were killing me.
Oh, man, and I'm guessing your wrist's going to be killing you a lot more as you get into the qualifying grind that we were just kind of talking about with Jacob. Talk us through, though, Brendan, how it's feeling like. Talk about the atmosphere at Team i5G. I always like to try and understand from, behind the scenes. You guys work together, build these setups. You're doing all these testing, detailed parameter runs and whatnot. How much fun are you having, or is it all about the serious business and trying to make sure that it becomes Team i70G or whatever you're at right now?
We've lost count. It's always a professional environment, but I never feel like I'm going to like a job. I know, we're like a team, but I don't know like what actual esports teams are like in their practices, but we always keep it lighthearted even when we're doing some serious stuff like draft testing and the like. And speaking of key runs, that's probably why my wrists are already hurting to begin with, but so today probably didn't help either.
Take a day off from the Q grind, Brendan. We'll see you in a week's time over at Indianapolis.
All right, see you later.
And one more interview before we wrap up. Nick Sudik fought valiantly. We'll quickly see if we can catch up with him. Nick, no qualifying, so talk us through that race. Up and down, and decent finish at the end of the day. And he's forgotten to unmute himself. There we go.
Forgot it's not Discord. Hey, yeah, that was wild. I tapped the wall out of 4 on my hot lap, and I tried to go lap 2, and that was a mistake right there. And that's why at a track like this one, I try to get your tires a little bit warmer. And I paid the price for being a little risky. But God, that was fun. That was fun digging through there right from the get-go.
Glad you had fun. Glad that you can come and join us here on RaceSpotTV as well. Congratulations on a great finish, and hoping for the best for you and the rest of the team during the month of May.
We will see you at the end of the month. Thanks, Adina.
That is true. Oh, we're already halfway through this month, and now, the days are ticking away. And again, just a reminder that next week, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, I'll be back home, which is going to be great, because as much as I love commentating from a laptop, I like being able to see what's happening on track. But May 20th, 8 p.m., of course, it's the penultimate round of our championship, and it's all a bit of a preview of what is going to be happening. Who knows what the weather is going to be like, but we'll have to wait and see a week from today, all as we get closer and closer to wrapping this season up. Just Belle Isle to come on May the 27th. Not sure how many drivers we're going to end up seeing for that race, mainly just because that is the day, that is the time when the Q grind for real will begin, when the sessions open, when the times count, and when the runs start to stack on up. That is all left to come, though. And on RaceSpotTV, plenty of coverage of the iRacing Indy 500 to come. We'll have more details about that. As mentioned, iRacing will have coverage of the third split of the Open Setup Series. Again, it is the 5 p.m. UTC time slot that takes center stage. 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on Saturday, June the 2nd. iRacing Indy 500 back in your life. It's time to say goodbye, though. From the team at RaceSpotTV, for Ramiro Cisneros on production behind the scenes, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Signing off for now and saying so long. We'll see you in a week's time from the best track in the world.